Hi, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and this is Relationship Alchemy. Today, we are joined by Teri Karjala, and we're going to be talking about Mindset Reset 2.0 for your relationships. Teri is a transformational life strategist, and she's the founder of Creative Counseling Center and Talking with Teri. Teri has combined her counseling background with energy psychology and applied the principles of quantum physics to transform people's lives by clearing the unconscious blocks that hold us back. Welcome to the show, Teri.
Oh, it is a delight to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad we finally get to talk because I love it every time I get to converse with you. So first, let's talk about what is Mindset Reset 2.0?
I truly believe, just with all my experience, I truly believe that the number one mistake that we make is our mindset. Mindset has a direct impact on every single thing that we do, including, our business, our relationships, how we show up, how we create new, how we, every single thing has a direct impact. And so whether we're talking about business or we're talking about our intimate relationships, I think our mindset has a huge piece of it. And I may give you some examples. I mean, just the other day I was talking about one of my clients, and she is feeling so stressed out at work because she's an entrepreneur. She's making the cash register ring. She's being pulled in so many different directions. And as a result, she's going home in a really funky space. And now it's having a direct impact on her relationship, right? And now her relationship is really being pulled into question. And now she's questioning herself and her relationship. Like, can I even maintain both of these things? And so I think it just has a ripple effect. And as you know, like you work with high achieving women, like you see this probably a lot more than I do, but I see it all the time, even with the clients that I work with. Like I'll be talking about, kind of their business and, whatever else is happening over here. But it's amazing how many high achieving women will come to me and say, I think I want a divorce.
Right. And because
seriously, it can
feel so hard to have both work well, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what's a mindset shift that someone could make who's having trouble believing that she can have a great relationship and fulfill this huge visionary mission or purpose that she also feels? What's a mindset shift that you suggest?
That is such a loaded question. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. So here's the thing. I think of a couple things is when we become entrepreneurs, we think we have to do every single thing. And yesterday someone was sitting next to me. I was at this event and someone was sitting next to me and she goes, "Do you sleep?" And I said, I do. I actually sleep a lot. I get my 7-8 hours of sleep. But what I think, and I said, I have 2 secrets. And she's like, "What are they?" And I said, one is I incorporate energy every single day to make it easier in my life. The second thing that I do is I have a team. Like I have a team for both companies. They are I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I did not have that. Right. Yeah. So I think that a couple things is we have to get that in balance, like our time and in our business or even in a career for folks that maybe don't have a business yet, or, they're still in the corporate America. Like we got to get that. I think we have to have a balance in there. And, not working 100 hours a week and really setting, those boundaries with when is work and when we're off. And especially for people that are working from home, I think they're colliding and we're not just keep creating a space for it. Right. So I think that really has an impact on our relationships as well. But here's the thing is I utilize a lot of energy. And I use energy in a way so that I don't have to do the hustle and bustle and push energy, where I like to become a magnet and allow things to show up for me and find the evidence that's like, okay, I can have this and this, and it can be easy. And so a couple things. What are we telling ourselves? So let's break it down. What are we telling ourselves? Because if we're telling ourselves, I can't have both, that's a great story. And it's actually not based in reality because we can actually have both of them, right? And we can have the cherry on top. I think sometimes we've been brainwashed in believing that we brainwashed into believing in scarcity. There's only so much. There's only so much resources. There's only so much love. There's only so much, blank. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is.
Time is a big one.
There's this belief that we only have such a finite time about this. And that's actually just not true. We're abundant beings. We live in an abundant, planet. There's an abundance, but if we come from that place of scarcity, it will be a struggle. Everything that we place our hands on and engage in will be a struggle. And it's really shifting that mindset where it's like, oh, what can I have? So the first step is really identifying, what are those limiting beliefs? What are those things that are holding us back, whether it's our relationship or in our business? But what are those things that are holding us back and keeping us trapped or keeping us tied into this belief that there's not enough? And
I want to highlight that. I want to highlight that beautiful shift in language, because it can be as simple that putting a crack in that story can be as simple as going from I can't have both to how can I have both? Because when you ask, how can I have a great relationship and a thriving business, for example, then that activates your creativity, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love using generative questions, because using generative questions, I'm not a big fan of affirmations, because affirmation says I am blank. And when we say this, what happens is our brain goes, well, actually,
no, you're not.
For real, Elizabeth, that is not true. Like,
my brain goes, no, you're not. That's ridiculous.
You are like, let me just tell you, you are not keeping yourself, whatever. And so what happens is, again, the brain comes and fights against us. And so if we can flip everything that we can into a generative question. So here's some sentence starters for us. Why is it so easy for blank? Why is it so easy for me to attract that really dynamic, powerful human being that's here to serve me in my life path? Why is it so easy that I can create a date night with my significant other or date husband on a regular basis? Like, why is it so easy blank? Or something like, I wonder what it would take for me to create blank. I wonder what it would take for me to, have my ice cream and eat it too, or, whatever that is, I wonder what it would take for us to create and generate really amazing profits in my company so that I can take off more time and spend with my family and my friends and my loved ones. Right. So just asking those generative questions. And here's the thing, the juicy part is the brain will say, I don't know. Why is that? And then the brain goes, I have a little task to do. And then it'll go, boop, 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 and it goes off and it finds all the evidence for it to collect. And it's like, oh, that's true. And it collects this evidence and it collects this evidence and it collects that one and this one over there. And it's like, oh my goodness, it is really easy. And you can start to shift that mindset from struggle into, more of that prosperity mindset, in that place of, possibility mindset, where it's like, okay, things are starting to come to me easily and effortlessly. And as they do, here's another thing. Oftentimes as women, I will speak for myself on this one. In the beginning, I kept canceling it out. So it was showing up, but I wasn't willing to receive it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so then I was like, okay, so when it shows up, ladies and gentlemen who's listening to this, when it shows up, here's all you have to do. Okay. All you have to do is say these 5 or 6 words here. Thank you. I'll take more of that. However many words that is. Okay. Thank you. I'll take more of that. And then you reinforce the energy of the universe, the molecules of the universe. And it says, oh, yes, that was fantastic. Thank you. I'll take more of that. And it doesn't require much to shift to see the results. And it's because I think sometimes people always come to me and they show up and they're like, it has to be hard. And that's their story, right?
Yeah.
And I always debunk that. I'm like, yesterday I was talking to someone and she's like, oh my gosh, writing a book is really hard. And I was like, can I just show you something that will change your life and your perspective about writing a book? And I took and drew out this little diagram, showed her the steps, and I just showed her and she goes, oh my gosh. And I was like, yeah, it's really easy.
It gets to be easy.
It can be really easy. I was on my group coaching call on Monday and I said, being on television is really easy. Can I show you how you do it? And, and so then I'm like, here's the strategy. Here's all you have to do. And this, it can be really easy. Going and speaking.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Going
Two
and
things.
speaking. or whatever it is. I'm like, here's a strategy. Some people are like, oh my gosh, you got to go do this. I'm like, here's the thing. I'm going to do this one thing. And then it will come. And they're like, really? I'm like, yes, like it can just be easier. We're so hard on ourselves.
We're so hard on ourselves. And it's true. We make our stories make the struggle happen.
Yes.
I want to highlight a couple of things that I heard in what you said that I really want people to get, which is learning to work with your brain instead of fighting it. So the way that affirmations can sometimes, set up an internal subconscious fight, you may not even, your conscious mind might be like, yes, I'm worthy. Yes, I deserve love. And your subconscious mind is humming along in the background going, no, you don't. No, you're not. So by using these kind of activating creative questions, you're working with your brain to activate its creativity because your brain loves to go solve stuff. So it's like you're actually, using the brain in the way it was meant to be used.
Absolutely. So there's a part in our brain called the reticular activation system. And that part in the brain is always scanning our environment, finding evidence. And the beauty of the brain is this: negative thoughts will find negative evidence. Yep. Positive thoughts will find positive evidence. It's literally based in science, like it's quantum physics. There's no mistaking. So that to me is very empowering because then we have choice. We have personal choice to say, I can choose this or I can choose this. And either one, it's okay, but just know that we're choosing it. Right. And so, and crappy things happen. Right. There's crappy things that happen in relationships. And I'm not saying to discount that, but it's like, okay, all right, let's feel it. Let's connect with it. What is this showing me? What is this telling me? What is, because when we feel hurt, when we experience
that's information. That's information.
That's all it is. It's just information. It's like, okay, I've received the input. I've received this information. Now what do I get to do with it? And now I get to choose to process it. I get to choose to, in relationships, I always tell people there's a rupture and a repair. And so we look at it as there's been a rupture. And now what are we going to do to repair this? Right. And so, I've in my own personal journey, I've had my own fair shares. My husband and I have been married 20 years, almost 21 years here, and we've been together 24 years. So we crossed a point at one point in our relationship where we've known each other longer than we've not known each other, right? And we got married when we were young. We got married 22 and 23 years old. Okay. And so I always joke with him that he's had 7 wives because I have transitioned so many different times. I just got one husband because he just was kind of, in a lot of ways, he stayed very true to him, when I met him. Right. And so he got the better deal, but I'm just saying that, but I've transitioned so much from who I was, when we started dating into, a 20, year relation, a 20 plus year relationship.
Amazing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we've had our moments where we wanted to get divorced. We've had our moments when we wanted to call it quits. And we've had our moments where I will say maybe a shoe was thrown at one point. Just saying, we're not perfect by any means. And it was really interesting. Probably the last time we had an interesting blow up, and we had to recommit. We had to recommit. Mm-hmm. And I know in my heart of hearts, he is my soulmate. He is, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of opposite. I'll give you an example. There was an event that when we first moved out to Colorado, we went to this old Chicago, had a trivia night. And my husband met this group of friends, and I couldn't go because I had a commitment for 3 months. So he went for 3 months without me. And then, so he's getting to know them. He has a good relationship with them. And then I come in and I go, what? And they're like, how in the world do you guys go together? And I'm like, it just works. And so I always joke that he is my kite holder and I am the kite. And so I'm up here buzzing around, and I do land, but it just, for some reason, it just works. But it has been, relationships take time and takes energy and takes work and commitments.
They do. And I thank you for sharing that because I so relate to that. I'm also in a lot of ways the kite in our relationship, and Patrick is the kite holder. And there's a way that he actually loves my fire. My fire is activating for him, as I bet yours is for your husband. Mm-hmm. And there's a way that his grounding is supportive and necessary for me, So, because we can go so much higher with more grounding.
Yeah, agreed.
So a question I have was, can you name for the audience, was there a mindset shift? I heard you say we just had to recommit, and I think that's huge. And was there anything else you can identify that helped you turn it around? Because you are someone who is doing big things in the world, and you also want a relationship. And so how have you made that work?
Yeah. And I think the mindset reset for me was I can be like, I could probably be a workaholic for sure. Cause I love, it gives me so much joy. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. And creating projects and all of the stuff. And so I have to know, and so here's the thing about me and my husband. If I am working on, quote, a creative project, okay, it might be working on something I'm developing or something like that. Even though it's for me, it feels creative and it feels generative and it feels kind of artsy and crafty, if you will, it's still contributing to my business. So he puts that into my business bucket. And so he thinks I'm always working, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm creating this. And oh my, and so he always thinks I'm working, right? When I'm and I feel like I'm just like I'm in almost like a creative spirit, right? Anyways. And so I think that's been really a mindset reset for me is where can I fit that time in that is not imposing on our time together as a family, So when my husband takes my daughter to practice she plays competitive softball, when they're gone, and they're gone quite a bit, they're gone 6 hours a week. And so I'm like, ooh, I get to play in this space. So when they're home, I'm engaged with them. I am, fully involved with them. And one of the things I had to a couple of things, just making my family a priority. And I know that sounds so basic and people are like, duh. But here's the thing.
No, but for really passionate, driven people, that's a thing.
I know. And it's just, again, I don't want to say my family is not my priority, but you can get tied up in this energy because it is kind of addictive in a lot of ways, because it's I'm just in a high, oh my gosh, this is exciting and this is exciting. And so it's really about recommitting and saying, okay, one of the things that a lot of people really close to me know, I protect my weekends like nobody's business. And my weekends are my Friday afternoon around 11 p.m. So after this call, I'm done. So Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, that's my weekend. Amazing. And I protect that time like nobody's business. And so it has to be in alignment with my values if anything's getting on that calendar or I'm committing to anything, because it is my family time. It is my, Mondays, are my kind of recharge days. So I really am committed to keeping that time protected for what's really important to me in my life. Right. And so, and something that I just did, my husband doesn't even know that I'm doing this, but you've probably are familiar with this. It's called the 40-day love dare. Or just called the Love Dare. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it.
So I started doing this, and
take a moment to tell folks what it is.
Yeah. So if you just Google it, I think it's just Google Love Dare. And there is a book out, and there is a really super cheesy, lifetimey kind of movie, but it's really good. And so it was so funny when I told my husband, a couple of years ago, I was like, we should do this. So I was like, oh, honey, I thought this really great movie. We should watch it. I hadn't watched it before. And he's like, is this another Lifetime? I'm like, yeah, it's Lifetime. It's called Fireproof. It is pretty cheesy, but it's great. It's a great message, right? It is kind of lifetimey, but it's okay. It's good. It's wholesome. Anyways, so we watched it, and then I told him, let's do the challenge together. And he's like, I don't want to feel like I'm forced to do something, right? He's like, I'll do mine on my own time. I was like, that's fine. So I decided just, 12, 13 days ago, I was like, I'm going to redo this. So I think today's day 12 for me. And so we get to, play with, what the tasks are, and they're pretty minimal, but again, it's just, treating and just reminding of how do we put more back into the relationship and revisit that? And my husband and I have always been very playful in our relationship. And it's just tapping back into that. And I love when we can be goofy and silly. So for example, we've had some really funny moments, but one time I was in the mall and we separated. And then he came back. And of course he comes up to me and he smacks me on my rear and he looks at me. He's like, oh my gosh, I thought you were my wife. And he leaves the department store, and all these women were like, I can't believe that guy just did that. And I'm like, I know. I was like, it hurts so bad. And so we totally played it off, right? And we've done that multiple different places, and like at restaurants. One time he was like, he slammed his hand down and he's like, I can't take this anymore. We're getting a divorce. And I go, okay. He forgot his wallet out in the car, right? And I knew that's what he was going to do, but no one else in the restaurant knew. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he waited and waited, and he came back. He's like, that was pretty fun. I'm like, hilarious.
For you.
I'm like, oh my God. But like, doing things that were just, again, just bringing that play back. And I think that's really important, especially when you've been in a relationship for so long.
Absolutely.
We also have, when we do date night, we can talk 5 minutes about our daughter, what's going on with our daughter. And then that's off the plate. It's like
huge.
It's huge because it's like, we have big dreams, and we have big, things that we like to do as a family and as a couple. But sometimes, if you have kids, I think sometimes that conversation can take over for the entire.
Well, it become the whole focus, and then you forget to connect with each other as adults and individuals. How do you balance the goals that you have for your business and the desires that you have for your business and your impact with your desires and goals for your family? Is that something you talk about together, or is that something you work out on your own?
I would say in the last 4 or 5 years, it's become really crucial that I started talking about it, because in a lot of ways, I just make the assumption that he knows and can read my mind. Anyone else?
Yes.
And it created a lot of conflict. And so when we talked about recommitting, I said, okay, here's where I'm going. And I want you to be a part of this. But I also, and one of my targets in the last 3 years is that I want to travel. Our desire is to travel more, but I was always traveling by myself to go to speaking events and go to whatever. And I was like, I want to travel with my family. Mm-hmm. And so, last year and this year, and last year was kind of a anyways,
a wash.
It was kind of wash because I didn't travel much. But this year, we have started really strong. And so every trip that I'm going on, they're coming with me, or at least coming later, and we're extending it to a vacation, kind of an extended vacation kind of time. And so that I'm like, this is what's important to me, is being able to travel with my family, because otherwise why do I, and so we've just really committed to doing that. And so to answer your question is I've had to make sure that he's on board with this, because, now, it's not just me making a choice around my travel, but we're making a choice together as a family to say, okay, where do we want to go? Where, and I can get speaking engagements anywhere.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of crafting kind of our, where we want to travel, where we want to learn about, all of that fun stuff. And so,
is he an entrepreneur as well?
He's not. I would love for him to be an entrepreneur. And I think he's such a powerful entrepreneur, but it was funny. Maybe it was 6 years ago. Now I own 2 companies. I have an owner independent company, and then I have this other company. And that's expanding and growing. And it was so funny and I'm so grateful that I was not in the bathroom, so I'm in our, bathroom, or I'm in our bedroom, and he's in the master bath, and he goes, and I said, honey, you can do it. I believe in you. Just do it. And he's like, you have no idea what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Do you know what that means to be a business owner? Do you have any idea what that means? And I'm in the other room, kind of hands up in the air, rolling my eyes, going, WT, what? And I'm like, what? What is happening? And I'm having this response, and I'm like, does he not realize that I'm a business owner?
And
we haven't had that
businesses?
Conversation. And I've had a company for over 20, since 2001 is when I opened my first company. It's not like it's new news or anything. I'm like,
oh my God.
And it's just so funny because but again, that's where he was coming from, where it's I think he just had that lack of awareness or whatever it was. But I was just okay, so I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to poke the bear. But I think at some point, I think he'll get there at some point. He's working up some other stuff that on the side. And so that will probably take over, and he replaces his income. I think that will be his ability to see he could do this, so he's close. He's not there yet, but he's closer to realizing I was look at this, you're just replacing this and you're replacing this. And so anyways,
Oh, it's so
But yeah,
cool.
but yeah, I
So,
just think that as entrepreneurs, we have to like planning out your goals and your targets for the year is what are your goals and targets for, the family and
for the
yourself.
family. And the other thing I really want to highlight for people is how ruthlessly you protect your weekends.
Yes.
Because I think that is key, especially when you get to the level of business that you're at. You've got to do that. You've got to because otherwise it will bleed in and take over.
Yeah. And I don't do work. I don't work on the weekends. I very, very seldom, like there might be like a crisis or something that very seldom, like once every couple years. And I'll, the other day I had to go into the other office and do some training. It was on a Saturday morning because I was like, I got nothing else. And so I said, I do have to, this is the only time I have a chunk of 4 hours in my calendar to be able to do this. So but my husband knows that happens so infrequently. I mean, the last time it happened was probably 3 years ago. And Amazing. So it just so infrequently, but I do protect that time because that's when I want to be, and I disconnect. I don't look at, and this is where for me, I disconnect. I don't do a ton of social media. I don't really check my phone. I mean, my phone is there, but I'm not checking emails. I'm not checking texts. People were like, what happened to you? Like, and I'm like, it's my weekend. Like I am committing to something else,
That is so key. And
it drives people nuts though. I'll be honest. Like,
of course.
And if I have friends, they're like, and I'm like, if you can't get a hold of me, get a hold of my husband. And so like, my husband's like, what am I? Like, you're like, and I'm like, I'm just saying like, am
I your social secretary?
like, if you need to get a hold of me, like get it through my husband because I'm just, I'm really just, I'm staying in the moment with, and getting refilled up, refueled up.
Well, that's the other piece. I mean, is making sure to refuel.
Yeah.
Because to perform at the level that you're talking about and that you're embodying, there has to be time to refuel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand. Thank you for this conversation. It's been awesome.
It's so much fun.
I understand that you have a gift for our listeners.
Yeah.
Would you say a word about that?
Yeah. Well, they can always, you have the link in the show notes. So you can just go to Talking with Teri. I think it's just gift. I think it's you know what? I don't even know what the link is.
We'll have it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes. So grab your free copy, but it's, I'm sorry. It's Master Your Mindset. So there's a couple, like 3 yummy tools in there that will help you cut down the negative chatter. Okay. Whatever that is in your business or in your relationship, but also replacing it with some generative questions. And then there's a really fun kind of outside the box tool. People will be like, what is this? But it's a great exercise and it actually facilitates the brain getting back on track. And one of the aspects, like it's so powerful if someone was having a seizure and you started doing this exercise, they would actually stop having the seizure because there's 4 parts of it that is just like, it helps the brain, it helps the body, it helps everything. It's just an amazing. And the gift is that gets you out of self-sabotage. So how many of us like to sabotage? And so it's a powerful, powerful gift. So definitely download that. And then obviously, just to stay in touch, come and check out talkingwithteri.com. I have tons of stuff. I always have great resources over there for folks. And then would love to stay in touch. And I do offer, depending on when this airs, I do have a free webinar that's coming up and would love to have people come in and join us on the webinar.
Awesome. So go download that resource because it sounds amazing. And then that way you'll also be able to find out if this airs before the masterclass, then you can attend that one or you can attend the next one. And I'm just so grateful that you're here today. Thank you. And I love that we met through eWomen Network, through such an amazing entrepreneur organization, because I love my women. I love my eWomen.
I know. It's fantastic.
And so thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been Relationship Alchemy with Marie Elizabeth and Teri. And remember, a great relationship starts with you.